They thought they could write you off, thought they could keep you in the background, control your narrative, dictate who you were allowed to be. But they made one fatal mistake. They underestimated you. They never realized that the isolation they forced upon you wasn't a curse. It was an awakening. The whispers, the betrayals, the moments where you stood alone. Those were never signs of weakness. They were the first sparks of something greater, something unstoppable. Because when a chosen one is backed into a corner, they don't crumble, they evolve. And now they feel the shift. They sense the power in your presence, the unshakable force you've become. They tried to break you, but all they did was forge a legend. You're not just here to play the game, you're here to rewrite the rules. Welcome to your era. They found out you're a chosen one, and now they have to live with it. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. They thought they had you cornered, thought they had stripped you of every ounce of confidence, every last drop of certainty. They didn't come at you with swords. That would have been too obvious. No, their weapons were more subtle, more insidious. They moved in whispers, in cold shoulders, in deliberate exclusions. They wanted you unsure, unsteady, reaching for their approval, like a drowning man, gasping for air. And for a moment, it almost worked. The walls felt like they were closing in. The weight of rejection pressed down. The silence wasn't just empty, it was loud. It mocked you, twisted the knife, made you wonder if you were the problem all along. They had you questioning your own reflection, doubting the fire you once carried so easily. They wanted you to believe you were nothing without them. But here's where they made their mistake. Pressure doesn't break the chosen, it refines them. What they thought was your breaking point was actually your awakening, the battlefield they built for your destruction. It became the ground where you sharpened your edge. See, the ones who are meant to rise aren't made in comfort. They're made in fire, in rejection, in the moments where everything seems to be crumbling. But they stand anyway. They expected you to fall apart, to disappear, to become a shadow of yourself. But what they didn't realize is that the storm they sent against you was the very thing that cleared your path forward. They dismantled your security, so you built your own. They tried to make you doubt yourself, so you found an unshakable foundation. They stripped you of their validation, so you discovered you never needed it in the first place. And now they don't know what to do. Because you didn't collapse, you didn't break, you adapted. They see it in the way you walk now, steadier, unshaken, untouchable. They feel it in the shift of the atmosphere when you enter a room. They lost control the moment you realized you never needed them to begin with. And that's the real downfall. Not yours, theirs. They ensured you walked alone, convinced that solitude would suffocate you, that absence would break you faster than their presence ever could. Every exclusion was a silent strike. Every cold glance, a scalpel cutting through your self-assurance. They mistook your quiet for surrender, believing that if they starved you of acknowledgement, you would diminish into nothingness. Isolation wasn't just an empty room. It was a hollowing out of the soul, a distortion of reality where echoes of doubt grew louder than reason. The stillness stretched on, pressing against your mind, feeding the fear that perhaps they had been right all along. You traced the outlines of every betrayal, searching for a moment of clarity, for an answer that refused to appear. What was worse than the loneliness itself was the slow erosion of certainty, the creeping dread that you had been cast aside because you were never meant to belong. But in the abyss of that uncertainty, a revelation stirred. no one was coming to save you. The doors had closed, the bridges had burned, and the world had moved forward without a backward glance. The pain of that truth cut deep, but in its wake, something else surfaced. A choice. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. With nothing left to rely on but yourself, there was only one way forward. The silence that once taunted you became a proving ground, a sanctuary where every wasted thought was reforged into purpose. The loneliness that once felt like a graveyard became a laboratory, a place to dissect failures and reconstruct something stronger. Without the noise of shallow acceptance or the weight of unnecessary bonds, you could hear yourself clearly for the first time. You were no longer a seeker of approval, but an architect of resilience. The time they stole became the time you used. The energy once spent yearning for belonging was now a force of creation. This was not rejection. It was refinement. The storm they thought would wash you away had only carved you into something unbreakable. The exile had not erased you. It had transformed you. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118, verse 22. They thought casting you aside would erase you, that shutting you out would strip you of purpose. But they forgot how divine plans work, how the ones the world dismisses are often the ones chosen for something greater. When God sets you apart, no man can bury you. They didn't push you into darkness. They placed you in a season of transformation. A caterpillar doesn't die in the cocoon. It emerges unrecognizable, stronger, freer, unstoppable. They thought the silence would consume you, but instead, it became your sanctuary. While they wasted their time scheming, you were sharpening. While they played their petty games, you were building in secret. They thought rejection would weaken you, but it only refined your fire. See, people love to believe they hold power over you, that their approval determines your worth, that their absence will cause your collapse. But let me tell you something. God don't make mistakes, and He sure didn't make one with you. What they meant to destroy you, He used to elevate you. They thought removing you from their little circle would make you small, but all they did was give you space to expand beyond them. They used to look at you with smug confidence, certain they had crushed your spirit. Now they see you and their stomach drops. They don't even know what changed, but they feel it. It's in the way you carry yourself now, unshaken, untouchable, walking with a power they can't name but can't ignore. The weight of your presence has shifted, not because they handed you a crown, but because you became something greater than they could ever comprehend. Every insult, every exclusion, every betrayal, they thought these were chains to hold you down. But no, they were bricks, and you used them to build. Now, as they sit in quiet discomfort, realizing they never truly had control, one truth becomes undeniable. You were never theirs to break. And the best part? You don't even need to explain yourself. They feel it before you even speak. Left with nothing, you discovered something they never had: absolute independence. While they clung to their fragile alliances, fearing solitude like a death sentence, you embraced it. Let it shape you into something relentless. They mistook your absence for weakness, your patience for surrender. They never saw the shift happening. never noticed the quiet revolution taking place within you. You studied, you strengthened, you learned to read between the lines of power and deception. Every scar became a lesson, every wound a foundation. You moved without hesitation, calculated, precise. While they wasted their days indulging in temporary comfort, you sharpened your instincts, honed your discipline. They thought cutting you off would weaken you, but in doing so, they unknowingly granted you the greatest advantage, freedom from their limitations. By the time they noticed the change, it was too late. The version of you they had dismissed no longer existed. What stood in its place was something untethered, something beyond their grasp. They, who once dictated the terms, now found themselves looking in from the outside, watching in uneasy silence as the balance shifted. You no longer needed their validation. They sought yours. They whispered your name not in disregard, but in recognition, in quiet fear of what they had created. Their approval had lost all meaning, their power now insignificant. While they spent their lives maintaining an illusion of control, you had built something real, something permanent. And when the dust settled, it wasn't you who had been cast aside. It was them. What they intended for evil, God used for good. Genesis 50:20. They thought they were writing your ending, but God was just setting the stage for your comeback. They thought cutting you off would break you, that shutting you out would silence you. But they forgot one thing. You were never in their hands to begin with. See, when you are called, when you are chosen, man can plot, plan, and push you aside all they want, but they don't get the final say. They thought they were burying you, but they were just planting you. And now they're watching in stunned silence as something they never expected begins to rise. At first, they laughed, they whispered, smirked, and carried on like they had won. They took pleasure in shutting doors, convinced that without their approval, you would wither. But the thing about those who move with God, they don't need a seat at someone else's table. They build their own. Regret is a slow fire, and now it burns in their bones. They retrace their steps. Every insult, every exclusion, every smug assumption that you were nothing without them. It felt like a game when they were winning. But now, the rules have changed. Because here's what they didn't see coming. Your isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. While they wasted their time chasing empty validation, you were in the quiet, becoming something greater. While they stayed comfortable, afraid to step outside their small, fragile circles, you were out there learning, sharpening, refining. And now, they can feel it. They don't know what shifted, but they sense it in the way you carry yourself, the way you no longer look to them for confirmation, the way your presence alone unsettles them. They used to speak so confidently about your failure. Now, they choose their words carefully. They used to look right through you. Now, they steal cautious glances, unsure of where they stand, because they know, deep down, that they got it wrong. And the best part, you don't even need to say a word. Your existence is proof enough. The fact that you kept moving, kept rising, kept building, it speaks louder than any revenge ever could. Because now, they're trapped in the same silence they tried to bury you in. What they never understood was that you were never fighting for their approval. You were being positioned for something bigger, and now it's too late for them to undo it. They spent their time trying to break you, but all they really did was build you. The echoes of their past whispers no longer hold the same weight. What was once mockery has become hushed uncertainty. They wonder if you remember the times they cast you aside, the smirks, the exclusion, the smug certainty that you would always remain beneath them. And the truth, every moment is etched into memory, not as wounds, but as proof of evolution. But vengeance is unnecessary. The mere fact of your existence, of what you've become, is the only reckoning needed. Their discomfort, their silent realization, is justice in itself. They relied on numbers, on the comfort of the crowd, believing their influence was unshakable. But they were mistaken. They thrived only when bolstered by the group, while you thrived alone. Their time was spent orchestrating your downfall. Yours was spent sharpening your edge. And now, as they scramble to find a way back into the world they shut you out of, they find themselves standing before locked doors. The illusion of control they once wielded has dissolved, revealing the truth they refused to see. The power was never theirs to begin with. It was yours, waiting to be claimed. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. They never understood. They never could, because the way the world measures strength is not the way God does. They think power is in numbers, in influence, in how many people they can surround themselves with. They think confidence comes from applause, from validation, from nods of approval from the crowd. But you were never built that way. See, the ones who are truly strong don't seek permission. They don't bend to be liked. They stand firm, even when they stand alone. And that's what shook them the most. While they ran in circles, desperate for attention, chasing fleeting status like a leaf caught in the wind, you were still. You were focused. While they poured energy into being seen, being liked, making sure they fit in, you were pouring into yourself. And in that stillness, you found what they will never have. Because solitude doesn't weaken the chosen, it awakens them. The silence they thought would suffocate you only amplified your clarity. The rejection they thought would shatter you only deepened your foundation. While they feared being alone, you mastered it. They never saw the investment you were making. Every quiet moment, every setback, every closed door. You didn't waste time complaining. You studied. You grew. You learned. They thought you were missing out, but what you were really doing was leveling up. Now, they can't reach you. They are still playing games of influence, still seeking approval, still tangled in the same tired cycle of needing to be seen. But you've stepped into something higher. You don't chase, you attract. You don't plead, you command. You don't seek validation, you embody authority. That's why the energy shifts when you walk into a room. That's why the same ones who once overlooked you now hesitate before speaking your name. They thought strength was about how many people stood beside them, but you showed them that real power is in how unshaken you remain when you stand alone. They chase attention, you command presence. They are interchangeable, drifting wherever the tide takes them. You are immovable, a force entirely your own. They mistook noise for strength, while you built something undeniable. And now, in every glance they steal, in every uncertain shift of their posture, it's clear. They realize their mistake. They assumed leaving you behind would erase you. Instead, it forced you to evolve into something beyond their grasp. And now, the ones who once overlooked you find themselves in a world where the balance has shifted irreversibly. They don't matter anymore, but you never needed them to begin with. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Matthew 20:16. They thought they had you figured out, thought they could keep you beneath them, thought they had the power to decide who rises and who stays small. But they forgot how God works. See, when you're chosen, when you're set apart, The very ones who dismissed you will have no choice but to watch as you step into everything they swore you'd never have. They didn't just underestimate you, they misunderstood power itself. They thought it was something you take, something you force, something you manipulate. But real power? That's different. It's not loud, not desperate, not something that relies on approval. Real power is unshaken. It moves in silence, it doesn't seek permission, and most importantly, it doesn't answer to small minds. While they still run in circles, trying to prove themselves, you've already outgrown the game. They scramble for relevance, for attention, for validation, clutching on to empty titles and fleeting status. But you don't move for recognition. You don't need their approval to know who you are. And that's exactly why they will never catch up. Because what they never understood is that power isn't about ruling over others. It's about ruling over yourself. While they wasted time trying to control the world, you mastered something far more dangerous: discipline, patience, presence. They talk too much. You move in silence. They seek permission. You take action. They chase recognition. You walk in authority. That's the difference. That's why they feel the shift when you enter the room. They sense it in the way you no longer seek approval, in the way you command attention without even trying. They used to mock you, thinking they had won. Now, they watch you carefully, measuring their words, feeling the weight of your presence before you even speak. Because they know you've crossed a threshold they will never reach. And the best part? You don't even need to acknowledge them. The battle they're still fighting is one you already won. The race they're still running, you've been at the finish line, waiting. Because you were never just another competitor in their game. You were built to redefine it. Legends are not crowned. They are built. They are not granted permission. They seize their place. The moment you stopped asking to be included was the moment the foundation of everything else shifted. You no longer fight for a voice in their conversations. You define the entire narrative. The same people who once disregarded you now wait in silence, knowing that their world moves according to your decisions. Power does not announce itself softly. When one who was once overlooked rises, the entire system trembles. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. They thought they were dealing with just one person, thought they could isolate you, silence you, keep you contained. But they never understood what happens when a spark catches fire. See, your rise was never just about you. The moment you stepped out of the shadows, you became a signal, a beacon for the ones who were still trapped, still doubting, still wondering if they were strong enough to break free. They watched you rise, watched you move, watched you dismantle the limits placed on you, and suddenly, they saw a way out too. Because here's what they never realized. Oppression only works when people believe they are alone. When people feel isolated, when they feel powerless, when they think there's no other way, that's when control is strongest. That's why they tried so hard to keep you down. Not just to stop you, but to stop what you represented. But now, it's too late. Because the fire they tried to smother in you has spread. It's igniting in the ones they thought would never wake up, never question, never push back. What they thought was just a personal victory for you, it's become a movement. They told people to stay small. You proved they could grow. They told people to accept their limits. You showed them how to break them. They tried to make you disappear. Instead, you became a force too big to ignore. And now, the same ones who dismissed you, who mocked you, who thought they had you figured out, they're the ones feeling powerless. Because for the first time, they're realizing that their control was never real. It was only ever an illusion. You didn't just succeed, you rewrote the script. You showed the world that the rules they were taught to follow were never laws, just cages built by those afraid to see others rise. And now, that fear is turning to regret. Because they don't just see you anymore, they see the ripple effect, the energy shift, the quiet storm of every person you've inspired waking up, stepping up, moving with purpose. This was never just about proving them wrong. It was about proving what was possible. And now, there's no going back. Now, the landscape is different. The spaces that once rejected you no longer hold any power over you. Instead, they exist in the shadow of your influence. The old rules no longer apply, and the ones who once dictated the game are watching, powerless, as their grip unravels. They tried to suppress a force they couldn't contain, and now they stand in the ruins of their own illusion. The presence you now carry was not given. It was forged. You did not inherit strength. You built it in silence, in solitude, in the moments they thought would break you. They assumed taking everything from you would leave you empty, never realizing it would make you limitless. The weight of your existence alone is enough to shift the energy in a room. They sense it before you speak, feel it before you move. The ones who once dismissed you now tread carefully, no longer certain of their footing, their laughter forced, their words measured. They can't explain the shift, but they know it in their bones. Something is different, and that difference is you. Once they dictated the story, twisting narratives to suit their illusion of control. Now, they wait in tense silence, adjusting to the shift in energy, no longer the ones leading the conversation, but those watching, unsure of their place. Power has never been about volume. It has never been about seeking approval or bending to make others comfortable. It is about presence, about moving with certainty, unshaken, unapologetic. Where they once sought validation in numbers, in fleeting attention, you built something indestructible, a force that stands alone, unyielding. Their words no longer hold weight. Their influence no longer stretches beyond the moment. They move cautiously now, their laughter tempered, their confidence diluted, knowing deep down that they will never possess what you have. They spent years shaping their identities around acceptance, clinging to approval like a lifeline, but their foundation was never solid. It was built on borrowed power, fragile and fleeting. What they feared most was never your downfall. It was your rise. They whispered among themselves, convincing each other you would fade into the background, unaware that you were never waiting for their permission to exist. And now, as they sit in uneasy silence, the truth pierces deeper than any grudge ever could. Everything they tried to suppress, every quality they feared in you, resilience, strength, the ability to thrive alone, was real all along. There is no need for retaliation. Their realization is punishment enough. The weight of knowing they miscalculated, that they underestimated what they could never contain, is a burden they will carry long after you've moved beyond them. Years from now, your name will still be spoken, not in the way they once mocked, but in quiet reverence. They will recount the story, each of them shaping their own version, telling it as if they always knew what was coming. They will pretend they saw the potential, that they recognized the fire in you before anyone else. But the truth remains unshaken. They were never the ones writing this story. They were nothing more than background noise, insignificant figures in a narrative that was always bigger than them. They believed power was something handed down, something decided by those who spoke the loudest. But real power isn't granted, it's taken. It is shaped through silence, through endurance. Through the moments of solitude, they mistook for weakness. They thought pushing you into the shadows would erase you. Instead, it ensured you became unforgettable. While they wasted time scrambling for relevance, for a fleeting sense of control, you built something that could never be stripped away. Now, as you walk through the same places where they once whispered about you, their glances betray them. Hesitation, discomfort, regret. They know, though they will never say it, that they chose the wrong side, that they should have stood with you rather than against you. But the realization comes too late, because you didn't just endure, you became something beyond their reach.